What's up, guys? It's Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to be breaking down some of the best wide receiver versus DB one-on-one matchups from the 2021 NFL season so far. Okay, so we're about at the halfway point of the season, and we're going to be talking about just some of the best routes that we've seen ran overall from this year and how you guys can learn from that and how you guys can apply that to your own game. Okay, so I hope this video helps you guys out, gives you some value on just wide receiver tips, some training techniques that you guys can use, and just how to be a better overall wide receiver. But also, fellas, if you want a 3-month daily workout schedule for wide receivers with all the specific exercises you need to do in the gym, check out that very first link below where you can get access to a 12-week wide receiver gym workout plan. So we give you first month is going to be our original wide receiver gym plan 1.0. The second month will be 2.0. Third month will be 3.0. The difference between all three of those programs is they get more advanced as the months go on. So daily, step-by-step, rep for rep, sets and reps, rest periods, all the above for 12 weeks. Check out that very first link in that description below if you want to get access to that. Let's get started. So first route is going to be from Jamar Chase. So we're talking, he's obviously ran a lot of good routes this year so far. So this is probably one of my favorite routes from him, just simply because this is something that a lot of great wide receivers like to emphasize, right? So every single route, there are 3 phases of the route, right? So you have the stem, you have the break point, and then you have the acceleration out of the break where you accelerate back to the ball, right? So that's what Chase on this specific release and this specific route exemplifies so well. So anytime that we get to the spot where I'm able to get this free release, where this DB doesn't have hands on me, he's not jamming, he's kind of in this catch technique waiting for me to run, I have to utilize this and I have to take advantage of the fact that he doesn't have hands on me. So everything about my stem, right? Everything about my stem, the portion leading up into the break, has to say fade. So my eyes have to be straightforward. My hips and my shoulders have to be committed vertical. I have to be in full stride. Those are the 3 big things that you need to get every DB to open up that gate, if you will, and to commit to the fade, right? So I need to be fully committed with my shoulders, in full stride, eyes are straight forward, right? So now we see what that does to that DB. That DB is fully turned because he does not want to get beat on the fade. He does not want to get beat deep. He does not want to get beat over the top. That's his worst nightmare in man coverage. So if I could be a salesman with my route running, that's what's going to get him to bite. That's what's going to get him to commit, right? Pretty simple. Now, the place that people struggle with is usually phase 2 of the route, which is the break point. A lot of people can get this DB into that spot. A lot of people can get the DB to turn his hips, to commit, to run full speed. Anybody can do that. Any receiver at any level can do that. But this change of direction right here is where a lot of receivers crumble. They don't know how to drop in and out of a break effectively while selling vertical, right? So what Chase does is he's able to sell vertical, then drop. And he's able to snap and actually drop at his hips and bring his chin to his knee to get to this low explosive position. That's how we decelerate when running full speed and actually selling vertical. So many receivers, what they'll do is they don't have confidence right there. So when they try to snap down, they won't actually drop their butt like this. What they'll do is they'll bend at the waist and they'll almost fall forward. And what that does is that creates all these choppy steps, right? You don't get out of the break smooth and you don't get out on a 45. Some guys might like to drop. They might break super hard with their feet, but then what they'll end up doing is they'll drift up a couple yards and they'll take this nice rounded turn. Guess what? When you round the turn like this, DB has more time to react and more time to break on this thing. So what makes this route so great is when Chase changes direction, he understands that principle of dropping his hips violently. He understands the principle of actually being able to get down low and drop your butt, be violent with your hips to create that separation. So this drop right here, that's how we make a tight cut. Like if you had a cone right here, that's how you get nice and tight around the cone, by getting to that low explosive position. We don't want to be too low to where I can't move my feet. You want to be exactly where Chase is able to get to, right here. Hips are like parallel, almost like a little bit leaning forward, maybe a little bit below parallel. Body level or pad level is going forward. We're not straight up in the air with my chest. We're not turning. We are running out of the break. You want to get low, you want to bring chin to your knee, and you want to be able to drive out of the break and actually run so we could accelerate back to that ball and win the race. This is a ton of separation on a route like this right here, fellas. That's what we have to do anytime I'm dropping my hips into a break, whether it's a dig route, a stop route, a comeback, a curl, a hitch route. That's the position that we have to get to, because that is the only way we slow myself down while selling vertical. Let's watch the thing again, full speed one more time. Great route here by Chase going up on this comeback route. Make sure we're selling fade, body language, pad level, everything's committed. Then that sudden snap of my hips and actually getting low is what will help me create as much separation as possible on that play. All right, so now we're going to be looking at this route from Mike Evans. This is going to be a whip route, and we're going to be talking about pretty much the same concepts and how this applies on maybe a different route, not a route where you're just straight up running a 45 break. This is more like a double move route. So he comes off here, hits him with this split release, dumps to the inside, puts the brakes on this whip route, and is able to accelerate out. I think one of the main keys here is I want to talk about how you guys are able to drive off of like your feet pretty much when you're making that cut, because anybody can get to an explosive position, right? After time of working on it, like we were talking about, but not a lot of people can get out of the break and get to that third phase of the route. So that's why I think this is such a great route, right? So a lot of the same principles as Chase, right? So he's here, hips and shoulders are committed to the slant. Now we're trying to sell slant. Now we're not trying to sell vertical. And again, route running is all about being a salesman. It's all about trying to make this DB think you're doing one thing, then doing the other. Simple terms that any like a 6-year-old can understand that, right? So when I'm coming up over the middle, his eyes are to the slant, hips and shoulders are to the slant, and what does he have? He's got full stride. So the only way I change direction with all three of those things is going to be violent with my hips, actually dropping my hips. And you see how he actually drops his butt here. He doesn't bend at the weight. He's dropping his butt. He's snapping on that inside leg, and on a whip route, you want to snap, hook the outside foot around. Now, we got to this explosive position, but now that's just phase one, which was selling the route. We got that. Phase two is the break point. Now, phase three is the acceleration out of there, right? And again, anybody could get the DB to commit. Anybody could get the DB to bite on a route. Do we get out of this thing efficiently, and do we get out of this thing fast to create as much separation as possible? And so when Evans comes off here, he snaps that outside foot. I want you to see how much he's pushing off of that foot. When we're in a low explosive position, you have to drive off of that cut to be able to get out of there. That drive off the cut allows you to open up your hips, and it keeps that explosion that you created from your hips. You want to create energy. You want to create explosion with your hips so you can push out of this route and widen the distance with this DB. So that's why it's such a great router from Evans, is that he was powerful with his steps. So many receivers, they'll drop their hips, but their steps are choppy. They're on their tippy toes. They're on their heels. You want to be on that arch of your foot right here, because that's where the power is going to get, or that's where the power is going to come from. And that push that we have off of that cut is what propels me into the finishing part of this route, into that third phase. So I have that acceleration, and I'm able to actually run to that ball. It's a great job by Evans there. A lot of people can get separation, fellas. Not a lot of people can keep separation. We got to be able to keep separation. So great job selling the slant, snapping this thing off, pushing off of that cut leg to create that energy and keep that speed out of the break. So now we're going to be looking at this routing from Amari Cooper. It's going to be a post route versus this inside shade DB. Okay, so now this is something that a lot of people don't understand, but you see guys in the NFL be able to do this effectively all the time, is understanding the off-man coverage and understanding leverage from a DB. Okay, so if you want to be a great route runner, you have to understand leverage. You have to understand your opponent. You have to understand what he's going to be bringing to the table and what his responsibilities are. So we have to run a post route, and we have an inside shade DB right here. So a lot of guys think that, oh, well, I'm just going to go attack his leverage. I'm going to square him up, attack his midline, as we like to call it on this channel, and then break over the middle. That's incorrect, because guess what this DB's taught to do when you attack his leverage like this and you stem him? He's taught to weave and keep his leverage to the inside. So I can't change the route up mid-route because I think he's taking it away. So I'm going to end up running my post right into him because he kept his leverage to the inside, right? So I got to make sure that I have another plan. So where does he have a lot of ground to cover? To the outside, right? This is where he's got all kinds of space that we have to operate. So that's where I want to be able to attack when I have an inside breaking route. It's no different than when you have a pressed up inside shade DB. You want to take the outside release. You want to try to get him to open up that gate and run so I could slip back underneath him, run a dig, run a post, whatever it is, right? So Cooper, what he does here is he attacks the outside shoulder. Anytime that you have off man coverage and it's inside shade and you have an inside breaking route, you want to split the defender into twos. You want to attack this half of the body because we are trying to get him to turn his hips and actually angle out of there. And it's not like Cooper does this like amazing break. He just does a speed cut, but again, he's able to break while running full speed, very similar to the Jamar Chase route that we talked about. And all these things, guys, all these elite level wide receivers, they all have these things in common. But when you attack that outside shoulder, guess what it does to the DB? He's threatened by the fade. In off-man coverage, his worst nightmare is getting beat deep. He does not want to get beat deep in off-man. He's 7 to 8 yards off. How's he going to explain that to his DC that he got beat on a fade route when he's in off-man coverage? So he's going to be anxious to cover that ground. So that's what we have to understand as a receiver. I have to self-fade. I have to have my eyes to the outside shoulder. My hips and my shoulders have to be committed. I have to be in full stride, and then I pop this thing right off. So that's a great example of how you guys can attack off-man coverage right here. And again, he even holds and grabs onto him, but still not even enough. Great route there by Cooper, understanding how to attack a DB's leverage and how to understand the leverage from a DB as well. Let's watch the thing full speed. Great job attacking outside shoulder with speed, being able to cut on a dime, and then accelerate out of this break to create space. So now we're going to be looking at this route from Kadarius Toney. We're going to talk about how most receivers get separation on press releases, okay? So we got this situation where this is a catch technique DB. So what is a catch technique DB? That's where he's like maybe 2 to 3 yards off, and he's waiting for us to go at him so he can get hands and reroute me, right? So he's hoping that I got to run like a fade or like something long developing to where like I see that he's off and I'm just going to go get into the route so he could get hands right on me and reroute me, right? But we have a slant route in this case, luckily, Toney. But Kadarius Toney does one of the best things you can do with the slant, and that's stepping outside the DB's frame to get him to jump outside of the frame. So let's watch this full speed. So Toney does a great job of hitting him with this like double tap release and catching this slant over the middle. Not going to focus too much on the run after the catch. Obviously, though, he's one of the best with the ball in his hands. But when we come off here, a DB is not going to bite on a move, fellas, if we don't threaten him in a specific direction, right? So, like, if we don't threaten him outside, he is not going to move outside, especially DBs at the next level, especially DBs like, I'm assuming if you're in high school, maybe below high school, you guys all have aspirations of playing at the college level, and the DBs that are there are very disciplined. They've been coached well. They're not those slappy DBs that you guys see in high school where you're playing some division whatever team and they're not very good. They're the DBs that are coached well. They understand technique. They understand how to be patient. So if I'm going to get them to move off of this platform, I have to threaten them outside their platform, right? So Toney does a great job when he hits him with this 1-2. You see how much he's stepping in this direction. His upper half, his hips and his shoulders are going to this direction, and he's throwing his hip with the cut. If we could do all three of those things, that at least will get a DB to shift his weight. If I can just get him to shift his weight, be off balance, be on the outside foot, that's going to open up the inside for me, especially when he's head up, right? So I got to make sure that I'm stepping outside of his frame to get this guy to jump. What a lot of receivers will do is they'll take these quick choppy cuts because somebody told them that you always want to cut inside of your frame, and you do want to be inside of your frame, but you want to bring your frame out wide, if that makes sense, right? So many receivers will just take these choppy cuts inside the DB's like base, I guess you could say. That DB ain't going to move. And then a lot of guys will do all this fancy crap behind the line of scrimmage, and that's not going to make a DB move. Even if it does, you're not attacking him. You're not threatening him in a direction. So why would he's got all the time in the world to adjust, right? He's just going to mirror you and stay in front of you. So when we actually step and I bring my hip with the cut and I bring my upper half, that's what gets the DB to jump. Now, I know everybody's going to say, they're going to be like, oh, you never want to reach outside of your frame. You're not going to have any explosion. You're too wide. You can't drive out of that. That's why I say throw the hip. That's why I say bring the upper body, because when you bring those two with the cut, you're in a balanced position now. You just got to make sure that your hip can be attached to your foot. When you bring that cut, it's like crossing over with a basketball. Guys step wide all the time in basketball, but they bring the basketball with them on that crossover, and they bring their upper half. That's the same idea. That's the spot that we're trying to get to, because now I'm outside of his frame, but I still have enough balance. I still am in an explosive position where I can effectively get out of the break with explosion, with speed, and be able to widen the distances. Watch the thing again, full speed. There's a perfect textbook example of what you guys can do on a press release against a press DB from Kadarius Toney here. Great overall route. And then obviously just watching him work with the ball in his hands. Very impressive on how he's able to create even more separation with that. All right, guys, we want to thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. If you guys have any questions at all, don't hesitate to leave those in the comment section below. We'll get back to you as soon as I possibly can. I always appreciate the feedback, and it's always great to hear what you guys have to say. And again, fellas, if you want a 12-week long wide receiver gym workout plan, all the exercises wide receivers need to do in the gym to take their skills to that next level, check out that very first link in the description below. Hope you guys can check that out. I'll see you guys next time.